What's up, y'all? It's Baba Fly here. Today, I'm going to talk about NFTs. NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens. It's a basically it's a digital way to certify your art. When you go and purchase some fine art from a dealer, like some real art, like a Monet or a Basquiat or a Warhol, you get the art. It also comes with a certificate of authenticity, so you know that it's the original, um, real deal. So you're not getting like a copy or a fake or a replication. You're getting the real deal of that art. The NFT is basically certifying it digitally. The art that you put out digitally is certifying it. Um, so why create an NFT? Well, as a musical artist, you can generate money through shows, t-shirts, streaming on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff, selling records, CDs, tapes, and adding an NFT for sale is another way to generate income. So you're going to create more revenue by having more NFTs. The cool thing about NFTs is you sell the original to somebody, and you can put a price on, or a percentage on what you get each time it sells. So say you sell it to one person and then they resell it to another person, you get 10% of that resale. So it's a way to keep generating income, for a long time with that piece of art. Um, I created an NFT out of a video, a fragment of a video that I shot.
Answer the flow, turn the beat to the mind, see the top of the ant, move it so we can't get complicated, spit your suck up, people, this stuff, and with the answer, flow in the whole stuff, rubber band back, smack back, what he told you.
My last EP that I released called Electro Sufi Remix, and I did this video of me surfing on my beat machine, and hitting waves, and you know it's to a song called That Flow. And so I took a piece of that, a fragment piece of that, and just created a GIF and put it on the NFT platform to sell on the digital marketplace platform. Um, so what I first had to do was create a digital wallet, um, and it's basically putting cryptocurrency into one place so that you can use that currency to pay for fees at the digital platform where you upload your NFT. The digital platform is similar to like YouTube. So you just upload this piece of art just like you would on YouTube. You create a new piece, you do a kind of cover photo for that piece. You title it, you give a description, and then you upload it, and then it's for sale. You ask, you say how much you want to sell it for, what's your resale price percentage is going to be, and you go from there. So the digital wallet that I used to create my NFT it's called Rainbow, and you can download that on your iPhone or your Android, and you can purchase Ethereum through that. Ethereum is one of my favorite current cryptocurrency at the current moment because it keeps on skyrocketing higher and higher right now. So you put your Ethereum on that, then you go to the platform that you upload your NFT, and there's going to be fees associated with that. So you pay those fees with your crypto wallet, your currency in your crypto wallet. And so you link that to the platform. The platform I use is called Rarible. So Rarible was the platform that I uploaded my NFT to, and it's there for sale for 1 Ethereum. And so that's how I did it. The crypto wallet also, when you do sell it, receives that money in that wallet. So then it's yours there, and you can keep that Ethereum, which Ethereum's doing good right now. You can keep that Ethereum, and it could grow, or you could sell it and get cash for that. All right, y'all. I hope that helps. Um, and good luck. I hope you sell some NFTs for thousands of dollars and live long and prosper. Peace, y'all.
What's up, y'all? I hope you're enjoying the Youth on Record 2021 virtual block party. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Juicebox of Paradise. My friends call me Juice Busy, though. You caught me munching the Twizzler. Today, we gonna be learning how can you create professional looking, cause yeah, they're just looking professional. They're not actually professional. But how can you create professional looking? Oh, this is recording in stereo. I don't like that. We don't need a stereo. Not today. But anyway, as I was saying, you're gonna learn how to create professional looking videos. Simple but professional looking for Facebook and Instagram advertisements, so that you can create advertisements that are quality, they catch the eye, and they get people tuned into like what it is that you're trying to offer and that you have to offer, and then hopefully they gonna click on that button and go where like you're trying to get to their website, but first you gotta catch their eye, you gotta catch their attention. So the best way to do that is do a good looking video. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I'm gonna try to be myself and be funny and be cool. And it's 10 o'clock and I've been working out and being a parent all day, so my loopy goofiness is bound to show. But it's just for y'all. It's just for y'all. And for everybody else on this planet too. But just for y'all. Choking on the Twizzler. Alright, so as you can see here, I got this thing called DaVinci Resolve. So what we were talking about before this hour went by of me trying to figure things out is now where are you going to edit it all together? So you have a few options, a few free options. You have like Windows Movie Maker if you're on Windows, and you have iMovie if you're on Mac. Those are free options. They come with the basics and it's good, and you can do what you need to do, and you can create something that looks nice straight from your phone, straight from your computer, without having to spend any money, right? Well, there's another way to do that. You see here, like you have this price right here coming up, $295, $290, $295 for DaVinci Resolve. But here's an amazing thing about this product. Come to Dissolve, or we go to download now. And okay, so this one right here, the Studio 17, that's the one that's $295. That's the one you pay for. But this one right here, this is free, and it comes with everything that you can need plus more. And it's so nice. You just download it for whatever your system is, and you're good to go. Okay, so once you get DaVinci Resolve all downloaded, you just click on Create New Session. I forgot to record all this part. Click Create New Session, and then you give it a name. As you see here, I got it titled Block Party Example Project. And then there's a couple of different options down here when it comes to editing. This right here is like is a very basic, like cut this, keep that, cut this, keep that. This piece right here is where we'll be living mostly. It's just a little bit more broken down. It gives us more options. So we'll be living in the edit. This is called cut right here, but we'll be living in edit for most of today. But yeah, so to add in your media, all you have to do is go to File, you go to Import Media, and from there your files should open up, and you just pick and choose the media that you want for your project, and that's it. Now to show you what I need to do, to show you some basic principles really quickly, like of what you can do here in this software. This is the first piece that I selected, right? I already kind of had an idea of like what I wanted my advertisement to look like, but not a complete idea. But this was like one of the first ideas I had, and I was like, ooh, I like that. So you just drag and drop, and boom, you got it. And you can do the same thing as soon as you go to edit. So let's just go to edit. And now you see it changes up a little bit, a lot more. We got a lot more options going on here, a lot more things that we can do. Looks great, but you're changed up a little bit. So you got, now your media is all over here. We don't need to worry about this right now. I can close this out just by popping that button right there, closing the inspector, right? All right, so the first idea that I had that I knew that I really wanted to knock out was an intro to the video, right? So I remembered as soon as I saw this video, this lady introduces us, me and my friend, as we're about to perform for this company, PEBC. And I was like, there's got to be some way I can use that to kind of like introduce myself before like the ad starts, right? And so through some editing, some cutting and splicing, I actually was really able to make it work well. So I'm going to try to recreate that right now. Here you have a lot of options. You see this down here means this represents like a link, like so clips are linked. So right now this audio is linked together with this video. And usually if this is clicked, then it's just going to keep everything linked together. So that one's pretty important. This one I use a lot. This is the blade mode. This is like how you actually go in and select the piece that you want to pop, like where you want to cut it. This one is just to like select where you want to be. Those are the three that you really want to know about. This one, the selector, just so that you can, whenever you're trying to like move, that's the one you want to use, right? When you're ready to cut, pop, pop, and just use the blade. If you need to link stuff together, use that. This is to the snapping tool. Comes in, I think it comes in a lot of handy, but if you ever really need to make like fine edits, like down to like the millisecond, you're gonna want to turn that off, right? But for the most part, this comes in handy a lot. So yeah, I'd say there's like four to 5 really useful tools right here that just for basic stuff. So this is what the original intro sounds like.
This year, Youth on Record brought us a powerful performance by July and Juicebox of Paradise.
Okay, so that's it, right? Really simple. Okay, so my first thing is I just want to use that intro for right now. I don't want to use the rest of this video. So the first thing that I'm going to do is find where that intro stops. And this goes frame by frame. If I press the arrows on my keyboard, it just moves frame by frame. So she ends right there. And so then when I clicked the blade tool, I was on select, I clicked the blade tool, and now if I just drag it to where this red line is, you see how the numbers underneath the blade tool say I'm on second 5, frame 26. So that's where the cut will be made, and I know that that's where I want the cut to be made because these big numbers right here tell me that this red line is at second 5, frame 26, so they match up. So I just cut that just like that. So I made my cut on my video already, but she says my name, I noticed, going into looking at July. I don't want that audio to cut out too soon, even though I want the video to cut out right here. So all I have to do, same basic principle, just cut the audio where I hear the audio end, right? So that's where the S stops. So I'll just cut it right there on that one. So again, I'll come down to my blade, I'll put it right on the red line. The numbers underneath the blade and the numbers of the red line match up. So I'll cut it right there. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is, because I don't want this video and I don't want this audio, I'm just gonna make sure this video and this audio are linked together by right clicking and then link the clips together, and then I'm gonna move them up. And what I'm gonna do, and you have to be careful here, because if you have something overlapping, the top video is what's gonna play, so you're not gonna see the bottom video. So you can see, like now all we see is July, That's because July's video is on top, right? So if I just click this disable video track, that I don't have to worry about that. And I don't want to hear this audio, so I just mute that. And that's all. And now all I will hear and all I will see, but I want to keep this because I may use it later. I don't know. I may use some of the footage from this later within the edit. So I don't want to get rid of it, but I'll just keep it up there.
This year, Youth on Record brought us a powerful performance by July and Juicebox of Paradise.
See? Okay.
This year, Youth on Record brought us a powerful performance.
She says Youth on Record brought us a powerful performance. So my idea, what I came up with is, instead of her saying this year, Youth on Record brought us a powerful performance by July and Juicebox of Paradise, I want it to just say this year brought us a powerful performance by Juicebox of Paradise. So we're just cutting out a couple things. So I'm going to go in and make those cuts where I feel that they're necessary.
Youth on Record.
So I know it starts somewhere around here with her saying Youth on Record.
This year, Youth.
Right, so I just want this year. I want Youth on Record taken out of there.
This year.
So, boom, paused it. I think she starts saying Youth on Record right about there. I got my blade tool out. Boom, I'm going to put it on the red line and I'm going to cut. I'll just cut the audio too as well, because that's what I'm trying to cut, right? The audio, but I got to get rid of the video too, otherwise it'll just look funny.
Youth on Record.
So that's where Youth on Record ends. Yeah, right there. So cut there. And I know I'm not going to be using this stuff and this stuff anymore. So I just delete that. And it's okay, because if I decide I want it back, all I got to do is slide the video. And look, it's still there. Right? Like, it's like if I just slide the video, what I just deleted will still be there. And same thing with the audio. So I just deleted all that, but I just slid it all back into place. But I'm gonna Control Z. Control Z on Windows is how you undo. So I'm gonna Control Z.
Brought us a powerful.
And make sure these are linked together.
This year brought us a powerful performance.
See? And now it says this year brought us a powerful performance, not this year Youth on Record. And that's what I wanted. So I'm going to apply this to the other areas that I want taken out, and it's eventually going to come out looking something like this.
This year brought us a powerful performance by Juicebox of Paradise.
So the Youth on Record and July being a part of the introduction got taken out, and now it's a completely new introduction. Something else that you may notice is this is a lot closer, right? There's a lot that we're not seeing, actually. Let me Control Z this and go back to what we're looking at now, or what we were looking at originally. And so if you ever need to crop something in here, you got this button right here, which is the transform. You just press that. You got to turn your inspector on. And then how I like to do, you have your transform. So how I like to do this is all I did just to focus on what I want to focus on. You just put your cursor right here. And you could zoom in, zoom out, right? And again, you see this little chain link. That means that the zoom X and the zoom Y, so the X and the Y axis are linked together. So they're both going to move at the same time. So all I did was just drag this to a spot where I thought it looked good. And boom, after doing that zoom in, making them edits, I think I added a little fade right here. And I think I did some stuff with the audio as well. This was to promote my album, right? So what I wanted to do was add in a song of mine. So the song that I chose is the intro to my album, actually. And you'll see that just on its own, if I just throw it in there, it doesn't really fit, right? So again, I'm just gonna apply the same principles of the cut, the move, getting everything lined up right. And that's all I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna do anything more special than just cutting and moving and just getting everything placed right. And so eventually, after I do that, it came out sounding like this.
This year brought us a powerful performance by Juicebox of Paradise.
All right, so a lot of cuts, a lot of things happen. And then I applied the same basic like cut and move principles to a bunch of these clips. So all these clips, like all this media that that I have right here, I just like inserted, took out, inserted, cut, removed, moved, you know, all that stuff until I got a little beginning piece.
This year brought us a powerful performance by Juicebox of Paradise.
So you can see there's a little gap here, but that's why I faded to black on this one, and then I faded out of black on this one, and you can see that, like, see that fade. Then and when there's nothing there, it's just gonna be blank screen. It's just gonna be black screen, and then you can see I faded in from the black on this one. And again, that's just with this tool right here, right? That's all you need. And that'll fade you in at the beginning of the clip, fade you out at the end of the clip, right? But yeah, so what the beginning came out looking like is this.
This year brought us a powerful performance by Juicebox of Paradise.
I came a long way, went the long way, but and then and obviously like I fill more in, but I'm gonna skip all that, and I'm kind of just gonna go to the end and show you what I did there. Okay, all right, so I got that figured out. So that's the first piece of media. I love watching all our dreams get made and come together like they come together like. And then the second piece of media is just the image. So we want these pieces of media touching, but we want them to transition into each other. Okay, now here's the thing though. I don't want this piece of black screen. Whenever I use a media or a picture, an image, it's usually not going to be big enough to fill the screen. So a quick trick that I have for fixing that, let me just get that zoomed in to where it should be, is I just double it. So I just come back up here, I drag in the media on top of it again, and then watch this, I'm gonna do it to the one on bottom. Now I can zoom in on that one, right? And so now it's just like a layer, but again, this still looks pretty nasty, pretty not attractive. So how am I gonna fix this? Well, this is why I recommend DaVinci Resolve, because with DaVinci Resolve, this is something cool that comes with it. You get effects right down here in the effects library, right? And so I just want a simple box blur, but I don't want it on this main image. I want it on the back image because I want you to see the main image. So I'm just gonna drag it and throw it on there, and now that just looks like, you know, it just looks great. It looks like a reflection. Now for the transition. Again, it's gonna be in this toolbox down here, and you see it, video transitions. I may have used an additive dissolve, which kind of adds the image in. We're gonna go cross dissolve though. So as when you drag it like this, that determines the length of the effect of the transition, right? How long is it gonna be transitioning for? But now you see what the issue is with having a transition in between these two, but then having this second image on top, this main image. That image didn't transition. Right? That image just popped up. So it doesn't look good. However, look, all we have to do to fix that is just duplicate the same way we duplicated the image and put it on top of each other. Now all we have to do is duplicate this piece of media, this video, and put it on top of itself. And you see how it's like dragging so nicely and like snapping into place. That's this little on it magnet. Remember I said it comes in handy? Yeah, it's called snapping. it drags into place according to like frames and like where everything else is lined up, what's lined up underneath it, but what's lined up before it or behind it, right? It just does it so nicely to where you don't have to worry about it. Now, sometimes if you have to make really, really minor adjustments, you want to turn that off, do the adjustments you have to do, and then turn it back on. That's what I do. And now all I'm gonna do is just move it. If I just grab another one, now it's seamless, right? This video transitions into this main image, and this video underneath transition into this background image at the same time, at the same rate, at the same pace. Oops. And you can't even tell, because these are just duplicates of each other. They're happening at the exact same time. Everything's lined up perfectly thanks to DaVinci Resolve being on top of it for us, and we don't have to worry about like getting too concise with it, right? Like, we don't have to do much more than that. Going back to what the ending looked like, I'd say it looks pretty freaking good. So this is from the already made.
Dude, I'm on my P's and my Q's while I'm catching these M's and bouncing back from these L's I take now and again. But I love watching all our dreams getting made. They come together like lavender lemonade. I love watching all our dreams get made. They come together like, I love watching all our dreams get made.
See, they look relatively pretty much like identical. So that's how simple this stuff is, right? With all these simple tools. And I'll tell you right now, we used about 5 tools, and we'll run through them all again, right? When we created these 2 pieces.
This year brought us a powerful performance by Juicebox of Paradise.
I came a long way, went the long way, but
created those 2 pieces with really two tools, including the audio, like where the song comes in, how it drops, when it drops, right? We use 2 tools. We use the blade effect to cut things up wherever we wanted to cut them up, and then just take stuff out, move stuff around. Control Z, all that. And we used the fade in for the video and the fade out for the video. Same thing for the audio. We just would cut up the audio wherever we want, take stuff in, take stuff out. And then the example we used over here is the transition, right? And this was a complex transition because of how I set up, or what I like chose for my end screen, right? Like choosing this image. But when you do that, if you're gonna transition, then you just gotta be sure to layer whatever video you're transitioning into. But so those are our basic tools: cutting, fading in, fading out, whether that's audio or whether that's video, and then transitions, and then layering when you need to. And that's basically it. And it took me a lot longer to get that sorted and figured out. But I think with some really good editing, I can make this over an hour and a half long video into 15 minutes. Hopefully. We'll try. I believe in me. I think so. All right. I hope y'all have fun at the rest of the block party. This is recorded in the past, and it is 1:30 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, and I'm sleepy. But I love y'all, and I hope you, and I thank you for stopping by. It's been fun kicking it with you. It's been fun getting to teach you a little something. All right. Peace.
Hey everybody, welcome to Budgeting 101 for Musicians. My name is Sarah Sleeton. I'm a singer-songwriter from here in Colorado. I've been traveling and touring professionally for 10 years, and a big part of the reason I can do what I do is because I've learned how to budget along the way. A little bit about me: I was the lead singer of the band Edison from 2014 to 2018. We were crazy kids who bought a van and started traveling on the road pretty much full time. And between 2014 and 2018, we did over 200,000 miles on the road together. We released multiple albums, were signed to an independent record label, and a lot of what we did in our career was DIY, which we did ourselves. And we were able to tour as much as we did because we made sure that we put the business at the forefront of our minds as much as we did the band. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share a presentation with you guys that I put together here. All right. Budgeting 101 for musicians. Let's go. Budgeting's fun, right? We're going to make it fun. All right. What is the definition of a budget? A budget is an estimation of revenue and expenses over a specified future period of time and is usually compiled and reevaluated on a periodic basis. That can mean that you're looking and reevaluating your budget on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, or perhaps on a yearly basis. Next, we're going to talk about your budget goals. As an artist, you should be aiming for a balanced budget, which is when your expenses do not exceed your income. That means the amount of money that you're spending does not exceed the amount of money that you're taking in. Today, we will cover estimating your yearly music career expenses and income, but it is always wise to start first by estimating your personal monthly expenses and non-music income as well. I've gotten in the habit of making my own personal finance budget. And now whenever I'm going to tour, I have to look at my personal budget and my music budget and really kind of see what I can do and how long I can go out of town for. To determine what your financial goals for the year are, we'll first ask some questions. 1, are you releasing new music this year? If so, how will you pay for that production? How will you promote your music? Do you need new equipment? Do you want to tour this year? And where can you get the most return for your investment? And what I mean by that, return on investment, I mean, if I'm putting X amount of money into a music video, X amount of money into a recording, what are my hopes of a return on that investment? What are my goals to get out of it? And where can my money be best spent? Where can I get the most for my money? Whoop. We're skipping, guys. All right. Next, where do I put my music money? First off, how is the band structured? You need to decide how the band is structured for business and account purposes. If the account is a solo artist or a smaller garage band that only makes a limited amount of money, the band members may agree to simply use one of the band members' social security accounts to open up a bank account. And what I mean by that is a business bank account. And now you have to ask yourself the question, do I need a business bank account? Whenever you are getting together with your band, you want to figure out if it's going to be a business that you co-own together, or some people out there might have a business where one person, which is called a sole proprietor, owns the business and maybe pays out other people as contractors, which is what I do. Now, if you're maybe a bigger band or a band that's wanting to go on tour, and what I suggest for most bands is to visit an attorney and have a partnership agreement drawn up and a general operating agreement. Though there is a cost involved with hiring an attorney, it can prevent future disagreements down the road and the band breaking up from financial issues. Now, if you're a solo artist, you're able to start a business LLC if you want, or you could go the route like I go right now. I just use my social security number and I have a separate account where all of my music income and expenses go out of. Now, if you're in a band and you're doing a partnership agreement and there's a group of you, once you draw that up, your partnership agreement, you're going to want to register for an EIN, which is a federal tax ID number, and that will act like a social security number for the band's partnership. And like I said, I suggest starting a separate business bank account to deposit all your show income and use for your business expenses. You'll need to pick a bank, and I would look for a business checking account that offers the largest amount of free transactions and has the least amount of associated fees. I do want to make note, if you're in a touring band, make sure that you check out the branch locations of any bank that you're working with. In my early days of touring, I remember we started out with a bank, and when we went to the Midwest, East Coast, we couldn't find that bank anywhere, and we were having a really hard time depositing all the cash that we had on hand. Next, I want to talk about Setting up that bank account. If you're going to decide amongst the band members who will be the signers of the account, so if it's a partnership, you may make the best decision by going to the bank and having all band members on the account as signers. But a band with no official structure could choose and pick who's a signer for that account and can use those funds. Next, you would just gather the funds to make your first deposit and you would be good to go. All right, now I'm going to talk about yearly goals and a budget forecast. So when we're sitting out for the year, we're going to sit there and say, what do I want out of my music career in the next 12 months? I'm going to use my own goals for an example today from 2021. So I want to record and release an EP this year. I also want to tour that EP to promote it, not just in Colorado, but nationally. I know that I want to grow my social media following, which I started over after Edison. I want to grow that by at least 30%. I want to grow my Spotify presence, which is also new, by at least 200% this year. I also want to grow my Colorado show revenue because I view that in a lot of ways as the money that builds my nest to afford to go outside of the state. I sat there and I estimated my expenses, and I figured the EP, based on previous recordings, would cost me on the low end $5,000, and that's with me doing a lot of pre-tracking at my house in my home studio. I put 20% of the recording budget for marketing. So I'll use $1,000, which is 20% of 5,000 to market the EP. I'm also going to set aside 1,500 for marketing a tour and a tour fund. And when I say tour fund, I mean money that I want to have in the bank extra before I leave town. You never know when you're going to have a blown tire or something's going to happen on the road. Next, I'm going to spend 500 on social campaigns. Those social campaigns, I'm going to be very strategic with my money and where I'm spending that because I don't have a big budget there and I'm trying to grow my social media in a smart way. With my Spotify campaigns, I'm allotting 500 for that. I'll link it to you guys, but there's a company called Toned in which I use for Spotify growth campaigns. They have a monthly subscription fee, but I can also promote my new song through Instagram stories, and they make it really easy for new fans to swipe up and find my music. Next, I'm estimating that I'm going to be paying out my band members $1,500. That's also a low-end estimation, but that means that I'm paying them out for every show that I would have them on, which for me, I don't have the full band on all of my shows. Next, I'm going to assume about 500 for my website and subscriptions. My website costs about $144 a year. And with everything else, I got my Spotify premium membership. I have a Linktree membership and a bunch of other stuff. Whenever I tally all this together, I see that my estimated total expenses for the year would be $11,300. And that's just my initial guess on trying to meet my goals. So if you want to see this in an actual budget, this is from my Google spreadsheet where I put together those same goals and I estimated those expenses. And that way I can go, and once I'm actually spending money, I can compare my estimated expenses with my actual expenses. Next, we're going to talk about tracking income and expenses. You'll want to keep track of all sources of revenue and list of expenses for your project. This not only helps you manage your business, but also makes doing your taxes much easier. Another perk of tracking your show history and your show income history is having hard data to present to potential managers, agents, and music industry. A band that knows their business stands out. I'll tell you, whenever Edison was getting signed to our record label back in 2016, a big part of why our team came together like it did is because we were so on top of having a large show history to show the label. We showed them how many shows we had done in each city, how we had grown our audience, and how we were really building something on our own. And we had hard data to prove it. So here again, I'm just going to show you an example of tracking my 2021 income and expenses. So you can see on the sheet that I showed you before, my estimated cost for the year to meet my 2021 goals. Here, I'm actually tracking my actual income and expenses so far. So if you see, I go and I have the date of each city that I'm playing, the date, the city, the state, the venue, the payment type, which would be like a door deal. So if you're getting a percentage of tickets sold, or if I got a guarantee, which is a flat amount I'm being paid no matter how many people come to the show. I have a line over here for the amount that I was paid. Next to that, I have a line for the merch sales, which I don't have new merch yet, and I will, but that's a big revenue stream that's missing from my sheet. But you always want to keep that on there and track your merch sales. I'm also tracking the attendance, so I can have that data and know exactly how many people came to each show. I'm also tracking my ticket price. A lot of the shows I've been doing this summer are free shows, and a big part of that for me is just coming out of COVID, and I'm trying to be pretty selective on my ticketed shows. If you go down, it'll show you the total show income, which will then combine all of the individual amounts from each show. You can see there that I've got just under 5,000 in total show income. Below that, I'm adding my digital sales, which for me, that would be the income that comes in from Spotify, Apple Music, and some of those small deposits that you'll get from your digital service provider. Below that, I'm including my BMI royalties, which I'll talk about PROs here a little bit more in a minute, but that's my performing rights organization. And that's the payout that I got from them for the first quarter this year, which is smaller than normal because I'm obviously not playing as many shows. So there underneath that, you'll see my total income, which is a little over 5,000. And then below that, I'm adding up all of the actual expenses that I've had this year, including my website renewal, my Linktree page, which is like a one page I use as a link on all my social platforms. I bought new equipment for the band for live shows and some live stream equipment. I contracted some labor, which is the actual amount that I've paid to the band this year at shows. I've also added transportation, which for there right now is just my gas, but that would be, gas, oil change, whatever else. I've also added $100 that I've spent on marketing and ads on social media so far. You can see my total expenses there were about $1,656. When we deduct that from the $5,200 above, we can see that the profit so far is $3,639, which is still quite a ways away from my goal of $11,300. Now we're talking about how you're going to track your income and your merch. You can see on the last spreadsheet that I showed you how when I'm entering my data in the spreadsheet, I'm including the date, the city, the state, the venue, the payment type that I had, the door deal or the guarantee or whatever type of deal you've made. I also have the amount paid, my merch sales, the attendance, and my ticket price. Now I'm going to put on a spreadsheet all of my income, which would include my live show revenue, and like I covered before, the digital sales like Spotify and Apple Music. And then I'm also going to cover the income from my PRO, which is my performing rights organization. Now, performing rights organization, it helps songwriters and publishers get paid by collecting one of the most important forms of music publishing revenue, which is performance royalties. Now, those performance royalties are paid by radio stations, venues, and TV networks to your PRO, like ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. And the PRO then distributes the money to the affiliated songwriter. So they're collecting that money for you and paying it out. A big part of that is that you have to make sure that you're uploading your songs to your PRO. And also when you play a live show, you can enter every song you played at each show and you are paid out on each song that you perform live at a venue. That's a big piece of revenue that bands tend to miss out on if they don't know about it. All right, you would also keep track of any sponsorship money and funds raised by crowdfunding, Kickstarter, or GoFundMe. And those would all be line items on your spreadsheet like I had before. So you just make a line item for every different source of revenue. Next, I'm going to talk about tracking merch sales. I didn't have a spreadsheet that I showed you for this, but you would want to create a separate spreadsheet to track your merch inventory, your purchases when you're buying merch to sell, and your sales. If reporting physical CD or vinyl sales, I suggest you download the @Venue app, which automatically reports concert sales to SoundScan. And SoundScan is the one that reports to things like Billboard. Okay, next, we're going to talk about tracking those expenses. Common yearly expenses include recording costs, equipment, that'd be gear, do you need a new guitar, microphones, anything like that. Your marketing cost, which would be ads, music videos, promotional photo shoots, hiring a graphic designer to make your tour poster or your album cover. Your transportation, which would be your gas, your tolls, your parking fees, your vehicle repairs, which can always add up, your website renewal and design, your merchandise, and any subscriptions you have, like Spotify, Billboard. Also, your contracted labor. If you are not a partnership like a band, if you're paying out musicians to pay for you or to play with you, that would be your contracted labor. So do you want to go on tour? Hitting the road brings the opportunity to play for new fans, hone your craft, and the potential to make some money. But you can also lose a lot of money if you don't plan ahead. I know that from experience. I lost money my first couple of tours and then figured out that I needed to break even to keep it going. All right, let's show you here an example of a week on tour. So we're tracking this about a week and a half on tour with Edison back in 2016. You can see some similar items that I had on my last spreadsheet, including the date, the venue, the city and the state, and the type of deal we had. If I had a guarantee income or if I had any door income, along with my merch income. Each show has the total income for that show. And then at the very end on the right, you can see the total income for that 12-day period. If you go below, you can see the expenses related to each show. So our gas, we had a giant 33-gallon tank and it was about 13 miles per gallon. So it was not cheap to fill up. So our gas was pretty high on here. You can see we have the gas, we have the van payment, and I calculated that because the van that we bought, we had a loan on it. And so the band paid about $500 a month for that van, just under 500. And so I divided that by the number of days in the month to calculate how much the van was costing us every day. We also had to forecast if we were going to be off tour for a few months, saving up enough money from tour to pay that van payment for the 3 or 4 months we got back from tour. We'd also put on here any lodging expenses, which you see there's not many because the way we got to tour was by the love of strangers and friends who would let us sleep on their couch. I also put per diems on here. A per diem is just an amount of cash that each band member is given per day. So we gave each person $10 a day to get food. I put a 10% fee here for our manager at the time. So they got 10% of everything we made at the show. I put contingency at 10%, and that was us saving another 10% just to put aside in an emergency fund in case of something like a blown tire, which did happen. Now, what I do at the bottom of the total expenses is I add them up all together and I deduct them from my total income. I can see there that I have 3,271, but then I'm going to calculate, for me, I calculated 15% of our goods and services tax. So saving some of that for taxes because we are independent contractors. So we're not having taxes taken out when the band's paid. So I set aside the percentage I need for taxes and I see that our total profit for that 12-day period is 2,617. All right. Here's some budgeting tools for you guys. I know you've probably heard of Google Sheets. I use that for most everything. They have a free monthly budget template. You can use that for your personal expenses and income tracking. Also, you can use that for your business. It's free to use. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. All you need is a Gmail account. Another thing I've found that's great for project management, it does cost a little bit of money, is called Airtable. Airtable has small business budget templates. It also has CRM and donation tracking, which is your customer relationship management. They also have a way for you to track things like your Kickstarter campaign or your GoFundMe campaign. There's other things out there besides Airtable, but I do suggest figuring out what the best project management software is for you and your team. Another thing I always suggest for people on a personal level, as well for your business, is Mint. Mint is a free service to track your financial information and your small business financial information. Mint will sync to your bank accounts, your credit cards, and your retirement accounts to track all your income, your purchases, and your savings. The Mint budgeting app also has a daily budget planner, which can be really helpful on tour for me personally. It also helps you with suggesting budget goals based on your spending. So you also want to keep in mind taxes. Because taxes with show income, usually you're taxed as an independent contractor, which is a 1099 form. The IRS taxes 1099 contractors as being self-employed. If you made more than $400 from any venue, you need to pay self-employment tax. Self-employment tax, it's roughly 15.3%, which includes Medicare and Social Security taxes. Your income tax bracket determines how much you should save for your income tax. But there is a useful guide on tax-deductible expenses for your band, and you can find it at freelancetaxation.com. They have different, on the tab, you can see if you're a musician, if you're an artist, whatever freelance job you have, you can click that tab and it'll show you a list of all the things that you can deduct on your taxes. And you'll want to remember that list and make sure that you are tracking all expenses that you can write off. Last, I just want to say a budget doesn't limit your freedom, it gives you freedom. I mean that. I think that that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned as an artist. I used to be scared of money in some ways especially when I was really young. And I've learned that by budgeting, you're actually more empowered to move your organization and your band forward than if you are not keeping track of everything. I hope this was some helpful information for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at sarahsleetonmusic@gmail.com. I will make sure to get Youth on Record some links to the things I discussed in the slides. Thank you for your time and have a great block party. Bye.
Hello, my name is Dave Ratner. I'm an attorney with Creative Law Network. We are a law firm specializing in working with creative people and businesses. I'm really happy to be here for the Youth on Record block party today. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully we can share some valuable information about copyrights and music law in general, and learn a few things. I will try to answer all the questions that I can. Also tell you a little bit about myself. Before becoming a lawyer, let's say in my former life, I was a band manager. Before that, I was a tour manager. Before that, I was just a roadie. So I've hauled gear and sold merchandise and driven the bus and did that for quite a few years. Became a tour manager, learned everything I needed to know about the road, became a manager, and got off the road, started a management agency. And I was managing bands and helping artists, just what I wanted to do. And in that process, I realized that all the artists I was working with need a lawyer. So I stopped managing. I went to law school so I could learn all about the law as it applies to the music industry. And really one of the most central things about the law for the music industry is copyright. Copyright is what is really central to how we make money in the music industry, what we create in the music industry, how we survive in the music industry. So this presentation, we'll talk about copyright in general. We'll talk about copyright specific to music, talk a little bit more about music industry law in general, and certainly we'll try to answer all your questions. Like I said, if you have questions that I don't answer today, you're welcome to contact me at Creative Law Network. I'll post my email and phone number here on the screen at the end of the presentation. But might as well dive in here and start talking about copyrights in general, because copyrights are just a type of intellectual property. And intellectual property is property that we can own, but that we can't touch. So property that we can buy and sell, make money off of, a license to people, but it is not actually tangible. So copyright protects all sorts of creative works. Here's a list here that I got on this slide of literary works, musical works, dramatic, choreographed, pictorial, sculptural, audiovisual, and sound recordings, which I'll distinguish the difference between a musical copyright and a sound recording copyright, but it protects really the whole universe of creativity. And so all sorts of artists and creatives are making copyrighted works, and that becomes our stock and trade. That becomes the thing of value that we can use in our business to make a living and for whatever other purposes. But really, when we say, well, I wrote a song, what you did is you created a copyright. And the copyright is something that that exists as soon as we create it. So we say as soon as we lift our pen from the paper, we have a copyright. As soon as we lay down a beat, record a melody, whatever it is, there is a copyright in that thing that we just created. It does the copyrighted thing has to be captured in some way. The law says it has to be fixed in a tangible medium of expression, which I know sounds like legal mumbo jumbo. What that means is that somehow you have to be able to show that you created this copyright. In the old days, before we had digital recordings or recordings at all, it literally was fixed as in written down or painted or sculpted. But obviously now we can digitally record things so easily that just catching, I mean, if you just catch it on your phone, that would consider being fixed, and we now have a copyrighted work. But if I just get up and sing a song on stage and nobody captures it, nobody records it, I don't have a copyright in it. So it does have to be captured in some way. We can't copyright an idea or a concept. It has to be somehow captured or recorded. Really important piece of the copyright puzzle is that whoever creates a copyrighted work is the owner of that work. That can sound kind of obvious, but it's important to think about because it also means that if multiple people create a copyrighted work, then there's multiple owners of that work. So if you and I sit down and write a song together, we are the co-owners of the copyright in that work. But it's really important to think about who's involved or who's in the room, whether we're writing a song or more frequently recording a song, because use the example of a band, maybe you've got a 4-piece band, but then we bring in a horn section on a recording. Well, those horn players contributed to the creation of a copyrighted work. So they are, by default, a co-owner of that work. And that may not be the intention, right? The band, the 4-piece probably says, well, this is our song and we paid these horns to come and record, so they shouldn't be an owner. But by default, whoever contributes to the creation of the work is a co-owner of that work. So really important thing to think about when we are creating, when we're writing or recording. Also important to know, because a lot of people will say to me, well, we hired these horns and we paid them, so now we own it. They get that. And I know that, I understand that. The problem is what the law says about copyright ownership and transfer is that a transfer of copyright, so one person giving a copyright to another, has to be in writing. So if you are going to hire someone to come and play on a track and say, oh, well, I'm going to own that recording, there has to be something in writing where they say, yes, I give you my copyright. You paid me to record. I'm giving you the copyright in this recording. And that has to be in writing. So it's really important to remember that when we're talking about making deals with folks for recording or for co-writing, things like that, to always be thinking about, well, who's going to own this when we walk away? Now, you may say, well, what's the big deal? Why does ownership matter? Well, a copyright owner has a set of exclusive rights. When I say exclusive rights, what I mean is the owner is the only person allowed to exercise these rights. So the first right here on the screen, the right to reproduce. So if I own a recording, I own the copyright in that recording, I have the exclusive right to make copies, to reproduce it. And that's important because whether we're printing vinyl or sharing it online, only the copyright owner can make those reproductions. So really important to have clear ownership of who the copyright owner is. Other rights include the right to prepare derivative works, I'll come back to in a minute, the right to distribute. So to distribute copies is important too, to perform the music, whether it's performing it on stage, playing it over a loudspeaker, in a bar, whatever, to display, not as relevant for music, but to perform by digital audio transmission means mostly over the internet. The preparing derivative works is important from a copyright perspective when we talk about using other people's music or copyrights in general, because a derivative work is a work based on the original. So that could be, I write a book and someone goes and makes a movie of my book. They made a derivative work of my book. When it comes to music though, if we're remixing something, we're creating a derivative. If we're even sampling something, we're reproducing, creating a derivative. And so this is where we talk about, well, are we infringing someone's rights? Are we violating their copyrights by using their music, by using their work? Or maybe even you take a poem and you put that poem to music. That's a derivative work of the poem. You take a clip from a movie and you insert it as a sample. We're making derivative works, but think about the owner of the copyright in the original. The owner of the copyright in the poem has the exclusive right to make a derivative, has the exclusive right to put it in music. And so we can't do that without their permission. But the good thing is, if we own the copyright in the song or the poem or whatever it is we've created, then we own that exclusive right. And that's really where we're creating value. That's why copyrights matter, is because we have these rights in these music we're creating, and we can exploit those rights and ideally make money off those rights as well. So one thing we think about is, well, I own this copyright, but how long does it last? Because we may have heard, well, copyright expires at some point, and it does, but it's a very long time before copyright expires. So generally, the copyright lasts for 70 years after the life of the author, which is another way of saying after the author dies. So if I write a song today, I own that copyright, and it exists until 70 years after the day I die. So, or the year I die. So that means it'll transfer to my heirs, to my children or whoever, and continue on. And so it's really important to think about how long that really can be. There are a few exceptions here to that 70 years, because it can be, if it is, if something is created for a company or what's called a work for hire, it can be 95 years. Don't want to confuse things here. We're focused on music, but I always want to point out the exceptions to the rule. So it's not always so easy to figure out exactly when a copyright expires, because the copyright term has changed over time. Over many, many years, it was originally copyright only lasted 14 years, and then it became 28 years, and then 28 years with a 28-year extension. So there was a lot of changes to the copyright law. So when a copyright expires depends on when it was created. At this point, anything created before 1925 should be in the public domain. Public domain meaning there's no more copyright in it. You may or may not be interested in using works that are that old, but it's good to get perspective on just how far we are into a copyright term and how long it lasts. I also want to talk about ownership and registering a copyright, because, as I said at the beginning, you own the copyright as soon as you create it, but a registration with the US Copyright Office is the best proof of ownership. And we need this proof of ownership if, for example, we ever need to prove that ownership in court. So in the hopefully very unlikely situation that someone was to steal your copyright, let's say someone records a song that sounds exactly like yours, they stole your song. If you need to go sue them for copyright infringement, you need to have that registration. Registration is done through the Copyright Office website. It's copyright.gov. It's not the most intuitive website, but it's a relatively straightforward process. We do registrations for our clients all the time. The filing fee is only $65. It may be even less than that if you are the only owner of the copyright. So it is really worth it to think about copyright ownership because of that protection it gives you. And we can register groups of songs. You can register a whole album under one registration, so we don't have to be paying for each song that we create. But it is really the other thing about the court aspect of this, the proof of ownership part of it, is that if you do have to go to court, if you have the registration, you can pursue what are called statutory damages, which is up to $150,000 per infringing act. So that $65 registration fee could end up winning you $150,000. We always encourage folks to register the copyrights in things we're going to release, things that we're planning on putting out there, making money off of, hopefully, but also things we care about that we don't want to be infringed. Another piece of the copyright ownership is the copyright notice, which is what we call the Circle C, the C in the circle that you see at the bottom of this slide, with the year that it was created and the name of the owner. And we try and put that copyright notice on any copyrighted work. And that we used to put it in liner notes of albums, which if you are printing some vinyl or maybe a CD, you can do that, but also even putting it on your website, wherever you're putting up or displaying, releasing, distributing your music, having a copyright notice is a good idea. And not only for music. I mean, some of you here today may create visual art as well. Maybe you're drawing or painting the album art or something, or you're into other forms of art, theater, sculpture, graphic design, whatever it is. All this stuff applies across all these different copyrights, types of copyrights. I'm obviously focusing on music today, but a lot of these same concepts apply, most of them about the copyright term and what's protected and the exclusive rights. All that stuff matters across all different forms of copyright. But there are some things that are unique to music and music copyright. So I definitely want to dig into that, because this is actually where copyright can get confusing. I often say that copyright for music is twice as confusing because there are two copyrights in every piece of music. There's a copyright in the composition, so the words in music, what's written down, so to speak, and there is a completely separate copyright in the sound recording, the recording of the composition. I will make sure to explain terminology here as well. The composition is often called the publishing or the publishing rights, and the sound recording is often called the master. I'm going to stick with composition and sound recording as much as possible to keep things simple, but one of the confusing things about music copyright can be this terminology. So I'll try to touch on that as we go through these things. But if you think about this distinction between these two copyrights, these two pieces of property, right? If I write a song, right, write it down or somehow get it notated, I've created a composition. And then if I hand that sheet music to someone and that person goes and makes a recording of my composition, they have created a sound recording, which they're going to own because they created it. So I wrote the composition, I own the copyright in the composition. Someone else records it, they own the copyright in the sound recording. This is very common if you're thinking about cover tunes, right? Because we can just go and if we make a cover tune, if we go and record a song that someone else wrote, they still own that composition, but we now own the sound recording. So I'll talk about the composition first and how we break it down, how we use it, the revenue streams from the composition. I'll come back around and talk about the sound recording in a little bit. The composition is oftentimes, it's split in half basically into what's called the writer's share and the publisher's share. And this is one of the reasons I don't call it the publishing rights, I call it the composition rights, because the publishing right, the publisher's share of the publishing rights can become very confusing, but it all does mean the same thing. And so we say that the composition is split in equal halves. 50% is the writer's share, 50% is the publisher's share. Sometimes, just to confuse us, they're referred to as 200% halves, and it's a 200% whole. But ultimately, it's the same thing. You have this song that was written, and if I write a song, I own all of the publisher's share, I own all of the writer's share. The reason we have these concepts is because of music publishers are companies that help us make money off our compositions. We say they help us exploit the compositions, which isn't a negative term when it comes to copyright. We talk about exploitation as the use of a copyright. So when music publishers started working with songwriters and saying, okay, Mr. Songwriter, I'm a music publisher. I'm going to help you make money off your composition. So I'll take half and you get half. And that was the split. So we said there's the writer share for the person who wrote the composition, the publisher share for the music publisher that the writer is partnering with. But if you don't have a music publisher and you write a composition, you own the entire composition. You own both halves of the composition. The place that we're going to run into this most is with public performance rights. And the public performance right, if we think about back when I was showing you the list of the 6 exclusive rights to reproduce, prepare derivative works, distribute, perform is one of those exclusive rights. So if I write a song, I've got the exclusive right to publicly perform it. But it doesn't just mean standing on stage and singing or playing that song. It means that song being performed to any group of people that's larger than family and close friends. So if my song is played on the radio in a bar or restaurant, if it's played over the stereo in a health club, if it's played in an elevator, those are all public performances. If my composition has been recorded and is being performed all over the place, hopefully, right? Hopefully it's on the radio and it's being performed. And so what happened with public performances and the exclusive right to perform is that when the technology was created, this is more than 100 years ago, when the technology was created so that suddenly music could be performed not live, when we had recorded sound, we had player pianos. All of a sudden, I write a song, I can't be in every bar and restaurant and health club to collect my royalties, to say, okay, bar, you can perform my song. Health club, you can perform my song. It's not feasible. It's not possible. And so what we created was performing rights organizations. So a performing rights organization goes out and says, okay, Mr. Bar owner, you're going to play music here. You have to pay us a license, and then we'll go pay the copyright owner. So as songwriters in the US, we have a choice of 3 major, there's another 4th smaller one, 3 major performing rights organizations, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. So if I'm a songwriter, I'm going to choose one of these performing rights organizations, and I'm going to say, Mr. PRO or Ms. PRO, performing rights organization, I'm going to say, Ms. ASCAP, please go and collect money for the performance of my song. I'm going to give you the rights to my song. You go charge those bar owners and health club owners and elevator operators to play my song and pay me the money. And that's what these organizations do. You sign up with just one of them, because only one of them can go and collect for your one or for your songs. And you basically sign up, you tell them the names of your songs, and then they add it to their list, essentially. And each one of these organizations represents millions of songs. But what they do is they go to these places that are performing music and say, you're performing some of our music out of our catalog, so pay us a blanket fee. And then they basically use algorithms to calculate how much goes to each song. It's a very imperfect system, because certainly it's virtually impossible for them to know what every bar, restaurant, and radio station is playing every day. It's just not going to happen. So you can't expect to, your song was played 37 times last month and you're going to get 37 times 1/1,000,000th of a penny. And they do calculate these things. And it turns into real money if your song, like I said, is getting radio play, or if it's in a TV show that's getting a lot of play. There are performing rights organizations are also licensing with things like Spotify and Pandora, because that is a public performance of the music. So that is what they are out there doing. That's why we have these performing rights organizations. And that's why it's important to register your songs with a performing rights organization. And you can register both that writer share and publisher share, so that they're collecting for all the music that you write. One of the things I want to make sure to point out today is the revenue streams that we get from our music. So that's what we're going to be talking about here for the next little bit, is different ways our music is used, the different ways our copyrights are used, and the revenue we can gain from those copyrights being exploited, being used. So a common one is these performing rights organizations. But there's a misconception that the performing rights organizations collect for all the composition rights. And that is not the case. If you go think about the different rights we have in a copyright, the right to reproduce, to create derivative works, to display and perform, there's different rights. They're only collecting for the right to perform your composition. So they only work for the composition, don't work on the sound recording. They only work for the performance of the composition. So it's an important revenue stream, but it's just one revenue stream that's generated from the composition. Another revenue stream is what we call the mechanical right. When we talk about mechanical rights, what we're talking about is the mechanical reproduction of a composition. What does that mean? It basically means we recorded a composition. So in that situation where I write a composition and I hand that sheet music to someone else to record it, they're exploiting my copyright. They're making copies of my composition. They're going to record it and print vinyl or put it up online to be downloaded or streamed. Those are all reproductions of my copyright. And it's a mechanical reproduction, sound recording of my composition. So we call it the mechanical right. And again, a very important revenue stream that has to be exploited for people to hear our songs. If we write a composition, it's mechanically reproduced so people can hear it, whether it's in hard copy, like vinyl, or digitally with streams and downloads. It's constantly mechanically reproducing the composition. So really important that we're paying attention to that mechanical right. And one of the differences between the mechanical right and some other uses of copyright is once a song is released, once it's published, and offered for sale to the public, anyone can go and mechanically reproduce it. And this is why we have cover bands and we have albums of cover songs, because once I put my song out into the world, anyone can go record it. They just have to pay me my mechanical royalty. The mechanical royalty is payment, right? It's amount of money that is actually set by the law. So there's a copyright royalty board that sets the amount, the mechanical royalty. An easy example is it's for a physical record, like a CD or a vinyl, it's 9.1 cents per copy. So if I were to record an album with 10 cover songs on it, let's say I want to record 10 Elvis Presley songs, make it old school, I would be paying 91 cents for every piece of vinyl that I made. Every piece of vinyl I pressed, I'd have to pay 91 cents for those 10 songs at 9.1 cents per copy. And so this mechanical royalty is something that can turn into a lot of money, whether it is someone else covering your music or even your own record label. If you have a record deal and that record label is distributing your music, is pressing vinyl or CDs or streaming or downloading, they are mechanically reproducing and they're going to owe you a mechanical royalty. That can get negotiated in a record deal, which is a little outside what we're talking about today. But the point is, this is another revenue stream. Another important recent development that a lot of people haven't heard about is something called the Mechanical Licensing Collective, or the MLC. We have lots of acronyms in this industry. The MLC just opened for business on January 1st of this year. It was created by an update to the copyright law a couple of years ago. And the reason the MLC was created, basically, was because the mechanical rights that were being exploited by what are called digital service providers, DSPs, Spotify, Pandora, Tidal, Apple Music, all those DSPs that are constantly streaming music billions and billions of times, there was not a good way to collect those mechanical royalties and pay them to the artists. So the federal government, the federal copyright law created the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC. This is another place you should register your music. Just like I was talking about the performing rights organizations, the PROs, registering that with the PRO so that you get your performing rights royalties, registering with the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC, helps you earn your mechanical royalties. So again, just another revenue stream that is often overlooked. It is hard sometimes because really music publishers, publishing companies exist to help us collect money for our composition rights. And it's hard to collect a lot of that money on our own from a lot of other sources, especially internationally, with some other uses. And so there are these things that I'm pointing out are ways that you can, without a publishing company, collect the rights, collect the money from the use of your copyrighted music. I'll also, as an aside, say that there are publishing administrators. So there's music services companies that you can pay to, or that will take a percentage to kind of act as a publishing administrator is a company that will just collect the money. They're not going to work on exploiting your rights. They're not going to help promote you, but they will collect your publishing revenue, take a cut, and give you the rest. So it's another thing to think about. The publishing companies only deal with the composition copyright. So I want to make sure to also talk about the other copyright, the sound recording copyright. So as I said, the sound recording copyright is a completely separate piece of intellectual property. It's owned separately, it's created separately. And so we want to think about who's owning it, who's distributing it, who's reproducing it, all of those things we were just talking about with the composition copyright. It's a little bit simpler on the sound recording side as far as revenue streams go. There's fewer of them and they're a little bit more common. The record companies deal with the sound recording copyrights. So the publishing company deals with the composition copyrights and record companies deal with the sound recording copyrights. Now, I think a lot of you may know, you don't necessarily have to have a record label to distribute your music these days. There's a lot of ways to get our music online. DistroKid and TuneCore and CD Baby are all companies that we can pay to do this. And what they're doing is they are exploiting the sound recording. They're putting the sound recording online so people can listen to it, streaming, downloads, however digitally. And that is the main revenue stream for the sound recording copyright. There is a performing right, just like with the performing rights organizations on the composition side, there is one performing rights organization on the sound recording side, and it's called Sound Exchange. So Sound Exchange is another place you want to register your music, register your songs, your sound recordings. And they should be, the Sound Exchange is collecting for every digital audio transmission of a sound recording. So other than your record label distributor, DistroKid or record label, whatever it's going to be, however you're getting your music out there, the other main revenue stream is Sound Exchange. That's the other place you want to register your music. The other thing that is kind of notable and different about the sound recording is that it often involves outside parties in a very different way than the composition copyright does. Because the composition copyright, the only people who are generally co-owners of that copyright are people in the room writing the music. And that's generally what happens. When we're creating a sound recording, it's, as many of you know, it's a very different process. It involves a producer, maybe some side musicians or hired guns, maybe a featured artist. And so when we're thinking about ownership of the sound recording and registering that ownership, it's going to oftentimes involve more people. When you try and register with Sound Exchange, it'll handle that in the registration process. But you want to think about the copyright ownership. So I kind of want to keep coming back to is paying attention to who's involved, who the owners are, and trying to get that written down in some way. So we have it recorded in some way. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. There's one other type of licensing that combines both the composition and the sound recording, and it's called sync licensing or synchronization licensing. So a synchronization license is when you synchronize music with a moving image. In other words, it's in a TV show or a movie or a video game or an advertisement. It's somehow with a video with a moving image, okay? And this is a different right because unlike the mechanical right, it is not compulsory. You don't have to allow someone to put your music in a movie. It's optional and it's negotiated case by case. So when someone, let's say if you write and record a song, in that situation, you own the composition and you own the sound recording. And someone says, hey, I want to put your music in my video. Well, great. They need a license. They need a license to reproduce your music and synchronize it with a moving image. When they're doing that, they're using both the composition and the sound recording. We can't really separate them, right? The synchronization is both sides of the recording. We say the comp sync and the master sync, for example. But both sides means both the composition and the sound recording. And sync licensing can be very lucrative. There can be a lot of money in sync licensing because you can oftentimes negotiate a higher rate. Well-known music is ridiculously expensive to put into videos, music, television and film. And so it is something a lot of us are pursuing and seeing where can we make sync licensing fit. I was working with a client recently who said, I want to be all set to do my sync. I want to be ready. As soon as someone says that they want to put my music in their movie, I want to be ready to go. And she's right, because a lot of times those opportunities are very short-lived. They're very quick. They come and go. Someone says, I want to use your music. You've got 48 hours to get it all together. And so one of the things that is very important is, as I said earlier, knowing who owns what, right? Knowing who owns the copyright. One way to do that is when we are writing songs, if we're writing with multiple people, having what's basically called a split sheet. So having a piece of paper that says, here's the name of the song, and here's what percentage each person owns. We all sign it. Now we know it's in writing, it's for real. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I know who wrote what, I remember. But we might not remember in a few years, or if the band isn't together anymore, there might be a divergence of memory on that. And so I really encourage people to write these things down. A split sheet is very, very simple way to make sure we know who owns what. And with the ownership of the sound recording, again, it depends on who's in the room and making sure we're clear on who's supposed to own it. So we're paying attention when people are contributing. For example, if we have a producer on this album or on this track, do they get any ownership? Usually not. We may pay them a percentage, or what we call producer points. But we want to be clear. Does a producer have any ownership? Did they help write the songs? Do they have any ownership of the composition? Did they play on the track? Do they have any ownership in the sound recording? And being very clear about that. One kind of common arrangement is oftentimes a record label will oftentimes own the sound recording. So I'll talk a little bit about record deals. And the reason a record label often owns a sound recording is because the record label traditionally would pay for the sound recording. So if the label is paying for the studio time and the engineer and the producer and side music, whatever they're paying for, mixing and mastering. That's why the record label would end up owning the sound recording. Even I have plenty of clients who there is a band company, like an LLC, that the band runs its business through. And since the band money is paying for the recording, that band company will oftentimes own the sound recordings because that's where the money came from. So that is a common arrangement for things, but again, it has to be in writing. We have to be very clear about who owns what, and any transfer of copyright has to be in writing. So you'll see in a recording agreement, in a record deal, if the record company is going to own that recording, it's going to say so very clearly in that recording contract. There's a lot of different ways that record deals are done, and they've changed more and more as the industry progresses and changes. So when we talk about traditional record deals, that is what we've commonly heard about, where a record company pays a bunch of money and owns the recordings, and oftentimes will be for multiple albums, so the band can only record for that record label for a number of albums for a set amount of time. And since the label owns those sound recordings, they go and exploit them and pay a percentage back to the artist. But there's so many other ways of distributing music now that we often see a lot of times distribution deals where the artist still gets to own the copyright, but they grant a license to the distribution company to reproduce and distribute those sound recordings. I often am skeptical, though, when there's a deal where, whether it's a distribution company or a record company, that says, well, we want to own the sound recordings, but we're not paying for them. And that's always quite different from the way we normally do things. So I'm always looking out for things like that. But one of the main functions of a record label these days is really to help publicize and advertise and market the music. Because as I said earlier, it's very easy to get your music online, but to get the attention for the music is a lot of times what the record company is doing. So that's one of their main functions. And that's what we call the label services. Going back to the composition side, the music publishing side, traditionally there were three types of publishing deals. And again, these have morphed over time and as we've modernized the industry. But what would happen in a publishing deal is the artist, the songwriter, would give some or all of the copyright in the composition to the music publishing company. And the music publishing company would go and exploit the composition, make money from that, and share some of that money back with the artist. Both of these sorts of deals can be over a long period of time. And music publishing deals can actually be for an artist's entire catalog, can be a lot of music. And so we always want to be careful of how much of the copyrights are we turning over? What are we giving up here? What do we get in return? But now I'm seeing single song publishing agreements where you just give the rights to one song to the publishing company. And maybe it's even just for a set amount of time. It's not for the life of the copyright. There's a lot of different ways that we do these deals. What is common, though, and what's consistent throughout, is that they're all dealing with the copyright in the music. And there's basically two main ways that someone else can use our copyright. That can be through a license or an assignment. So an assignment is just a sale of the copyright. It says, I own this copyright, I'm giving it to you. I'm just assigning it to you. You now own it. Like selling any other item, it is a full transfer, has to be in writing, and then you no longer, hopefully you get paid for it, but you no longer have any rights. Licensing is also very common, and licensing is more like renting. And I know I've been talking about licensing with sync licensing and mechanical licensing, but what that really means in a broad copyright sense is that you're granting someone else a limited right to use your copyright. So using the sync license example, you're saying you can use my copyright just in this movie, not in any movie, not forever, but just in this movie for that purpose. And so licensing agreements take many different forms because we can grant a license for someone to put our music in a podcast, or maybe add one of our tracks to a compilation. All of these uses are licenses because we're going to still own the copyright. We're going to grant someone the limited right to use our music for some purpose. And so we want those licensing agreements, because we always want them in writing, always want to make sure they're written down. We want those licensing agreements to be very clear about what rights they get, how long it lasts. Is it just in the US? Is it worldwide? Even what types is it physical, like vinyl and CD? Is it only digital? Is it only download? Is it only streaming? So we want to be very, very specific about the rights granted, and then also about what we get in return. How are we paid? When are we paid? How do we make sure we're getting paid the right amount? So a lot of times people think, oh, well, this is simple. I'm just giving someone the right to use my music, but there's a lot of detail that needs to go into it. And we want to make sure that detail is tracked and written down very clearly, very explicitly, with a lot of detail, so there's never going to be any argument about it later, any confusion about what the deal was. Because really a contract, a licensing agreement, a licensing contract, is just going to lay out the terms of the deal, what we agreed to, then we sign it to show that we agreed. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be full of a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, but it does have to be explicit and clear and detailed so we know exactly what it is. Most of the time, we're going to sign that agreement. We're going to file it away. We don't have to look at it again. But in the instance that we don't get paid, we can pull it out and look at what the deal was and hopefully clear up any confusion, clear up any issues. So really important to be as detailed as possible. And I think that for a lot of these things I'm talking about, the different revenue streams and the registration of the music is, again, being very detailed with exact names of music, percentages of ownership, times that we can use it, things like that. And I think that is one of the main takeaways I want to make sure to convey today, is to think about that copyright ownership. Think about who owns what and put it in writing so it's clear. And one of the ways we put that in writing can be a split sheet or any sort of document that says we all agree, we all sign a document that says this is what our ownership rights are. The other thing that I think is a takeaway here is to register your music, because these are our revenue streams, right? So registering with a performing rights organization like ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC, registering with the Mechanical Licensing Collective, registering your sound recordings with Sound Exchange, and registering your copyrights with the US Copyright Office. All really valuable steps to protect your rights, relatively inexpensive, and last a long time. So really valuable. I know this is a lot of information. It's a lot to take in. And I often get the question, well, do I need a lawyer? Or when do I need a lawyer? And if you're asking a lawyer when you need a lawyer, he's going to say you should have a lawyer right away. But I think it's also a matter of making sure to get answers to the questions that you have. And that's something that certainly we do for our clients. We always do a free consultation. We don't expect anyone to pay us until they get to meet us, but you should be able to ask a lawyer questions about what they do and what they charge. And then, the general kind of things that lawyers help us do are putting things in writing, protecting our rights. So I will tell you that you don't need to have a lawyer to write a contract. I don't encourage people to go writing contracts full of legalese with all these confusing whereas and therefore type of terms, but certainly there's a lot of things that can be very simply written down and, as I said, registered to protect your rights. But I always encourage people to reach out to a lawyer if you think you need one. The other thing about lawyers is that we can be expensive, and we know this. And so I helped form something called Colorado Attorneys for the Arts. Colorado Attorneys for the Arts is a free legal service. So basically, it is an organization that connects in-need artists with pro bono legal services. Pro bono means free. So you can go to coloradoattorneysforthearts.org and find out more about getting some free legal help if you financially qualify. If you don't, or if you have more questions, here's all my contact information. So you can reach out to me. I'm Dave Ratner at Creative Law Network. And we can follow up on this, this presentation that we've done today. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, and really appreciate you spending time here with me learning about music copyright. So please keep in touch and let me know how else I can help, and have a great day. Thanks.
Welcome. Thank you for being here today. My name is Jesus Rodriguez. I'm a programs coordinator for Youth on Record. I am also a music producer and a songwriter. As an independent artist, I'm excited to share with you information on how you can distribute your own music online. If you have an original song that is ready to be released and you want it to be placed on Spotify, iTunes, or any digital music streaming platform, then this workshop will give you a clear understanding on how to do just that. So let's get it started. Let's do a quick overview of what we're going to learn today. Number one, we're going to learn what are digital music distribution companies and digital service providers. Number two, we're going to compare two different digital music distributors. And number three, we're going to showcase the process of uploading a song through a digital music distributor. Okay, let's talk about digital music distribution companies. Digital music distribution companies, aka aggregators, provide single artists and bands the ability to distribute music directly to streaming platforms and digital music stores. They are the ones that collect and organize your music and the information needed for them to submit to all the streaming platforms. They are the middleman between your music getting out to the public. And this is really critical for independent artists because it's a simple way to reach more fans without having to be attached to a record label. So some of these music distribution companies include DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, Ditto, and Amuse is also a record label and a distribution company. And Landar first started as a digital mastering service and now has offered distribution as well. So typically, a music distribution company charges artists an upfront fee or a yearly subscription to distribute their singles and their albums. They also collect the master recording royalties from streams and digital download sales. And you also retain 100% ownership of your music. So you have chosen a music distribution company. Now they're going to send your music to all these different streaming platforms. These platforms are digital service providers or DSPs. They are online music stores like iTunes, Amazon Music, or their music streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal. The big difference there is that an online music store sells music, so a customer could purchase a song, and a streaming platform, you pay a subscription to keep listening to whatever songs are in that platform whenever you want. These platforms feature digital albums and singles for people to purchase or to stream. There are currently 150 DSPs around the world. And let's talk about some of the major ones: iTunes, Tidal, Google Play, Pandora, YouTube Music, Deezer, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify. Spotify is currently the largest purely music streaming platform in the world, with over 140 million active users per month. Spotify pays an average of 1/3 to 1/2 of a penny per stream. You can expect to make between $3 and $5 per 1,000 streams on Spotify as a musician. So now we're going to compare two digital music distribution companies. We're going to start with DistroKid. We're going to look at the pricing first. DistroKid offers multiple plans ranging from a single artist / band plan to label plans for up to 100 artists. You can upload unlimited singles or albums. The musician plan is just for one name, and that's $20 every year. And the label plan for up to 5 names is $80 every year. The pros for DistroKid: they have Spotify and iTunes artist verification. They distribute to TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. They distribute lyrics to Apple Music, Facebook / IG stories. And they provide UPC and ISRC codes. Those are digital fingerprints that identify and keep track of your songs. Some of the cons for DistroKid: they will collect your master recording royalties if you stop paying your yearly subscription. They have additional services that you have to pay for, like the $29 legacy fee to keep your music on all DSPs for life without having to pay for the yearly subscription. I would say DistroKid is really user-friendly, and I've used it for multiple releases and I haven't had any major issues with it yet. So I definitely recommend it. It's a bit of an investment to keep on paying that yearly subscription, but if you release a lot of music, I think it's really beneficial. So yeah, let's move on to CD Baby. Let's start with the pricing. If you want to release a single through CD Baby, it's going to cost you around $10. And if you want to release a standard album, that's going to cost you $29. The pros for CD Baby is they have no annual fees. So once you pay for that single release, there's no additional fees required, and it stays on all DSP platforms for life. So a pro for CD Baby is that you could release a single or an album in their pro version, which allows you to have worldwide publishing royalties collected by them. They do Spotify and iTunes artist verification as well. They distribute to Facebook and Instagram, and they also have sync licensing for TV, films, and games. Cons for CD Baby is you have to pay for a UPC, which is $20 per album and $5 per single. And then CD Baby keeps 9% of your digital distribution revenues that you earn from, download sales and streams. I've also used CD Baby in the past, and it's not the most user-friendly experience, but if you do not have the money to invest yearly in a subscription, this one-time fee to release a single and an album is definitely the way to go. So now that I compared DistroKid and CD Baby, I want to make sure that you understand that there's definitely a lot more options out there. There's even, music distribution companies that offer you to upload the music through them for free. Just make sure you do, a thorough investigation on all these different distribution companies, and you pick one that is going to benefit you the most. So next, I'm going to show you the process of how to upload a song through DistroKid. All the digital music distribution companies have similar requirements to upload a song. So this will give you a good overview of how that looks. So the first section is the services. This will allow you to choose which streaming platforms and music stores you want to add your music to. So all these different platforms have already been selected, and you could deselect and not choose any of these platforms if you choose to do so. The next section is the number of songs. For this example, I'm going to upload just one song. So the next section asks if this song has been previously released. The next section is the artist or band name. So this next section asks if your artist name has been verified through Spotify or Apple Music, and if it's this is a new process for you, you want to click on no. This name has not been verified through these streaming platforms. Once your song is uploaded, you will get a chance to verify your name through Spotify and Apple Music through DistroKid. So this next section asks you to choose a release date for your song. The recommendation is to pick a date that's 4 weeks from when you started the process to upload the song. It's recommended for you to choose a date that's 4 weeks ahead because that gives DistroKid the time to send out your song to all the different digital music streaming platforms. When your song is released, the goal is to have all the platforms have your song available and ready to be heard. So this next section is asking for release time. So you could pick when your song gets released through all the digital streaming platforms. This next question is time synchronization. So with time synchronization, it gives you the option to release your music in the listener's time zone or to simultaneously release it in all other countries at the same time, regardless of the time zone. So you decide which option works best for you. So next we have the pre-order question. Do you want your music to be bought before the release date? You could decide if you want that or you don't. This next section asks you for your record label name. So next we're gonna upload the album cover. You wanna make sure that your file is at least 3000 by 3000 pixels. That's gonna be a high quality file. And if your cover does not match the size recommendations, it will deny your upload and it'll ask you to re-upload the image. This next section asks what's the primary language for your music. And then below it is the primary genre. We're gonna go with rock. And then the secondary genre, which is optional, I'm gonna pick alternative. So the next step is to put the song title. So moving on, this section here asks you to upload the audio file of your song. You want to make sure you have a high quality audio file like a WAV or a FLAC. So this next section asks, who's the songwriter? Are you the original songwriter or was this a cover? So in this section, you're going to add the songwriter's name. And if there's multiple songwriters, you get to choose that as well. This next section asks if there's explicit lyrics in your song. And the one below it asks if this is a radio edit. This next section asks if this song contains lyrics or if it's just an instrumental. And this section asks you to decide at what point do you want your song to start when somebody clicks to hear the preview. And you can let that be a default decision or a specific decision. So the next section asks, what's your track's price for iTunes, Google Play, Amazon? And you could pick between 69 cents, 99 cents, and $1.29. This whole section is extra services that are optional. You could get a YouTube content ID for $5 a year, which DistroKid will collect the ad revenue that's generated from the streams of your video. The store maximizer is $7.99 a year, and it will automatically deliver your song to all the new online stores and streaming services that are available. There's a social phone number service where DistroKid will provide you another phone number, which could be used to market yourself, text fans, and save fans' numbers and information. And for $1 a year, you could add Shazam and iPhone Siri. This helps people identify your song when they hear it in the radio, in stores and restaurants. And then the Title Master MQA, which is $8.99 one-time fee, encodes your audio using MQA, which displays the master badge on Tidal. The last service in this section is Leave a Legacy. For an additional $29, DistroKid will never delete your song, even if you cancel the account. It will stay on all the different streaming platforms and music stores. The final section is important checkboxes. So once you've read and agreed to all these terms, then you'll click the done button, and if everything is good, DistroKid will start the process to submit your song to all the different music streaming services and online music stores. Thank you again for joining me. I hope this information was helpful. Make sure to do your own research to decide which music distribution company is best for you. I appreciate your time. Peace.